This is only the demo. Do you realize this is a demo? This is a f***ing demo. Me so mad I make review on demo. I bet you play Fortnite. It's a demo, not the full game. There will be lots of changes on the main game. Bro, you only played the demo. It's a demo, bro. Stop getting your panties wet. Imagine forming your entire opinion on a demo. It's a demo! Apparently, a lot of people think that a demo that releases a month before the game comes out is not representative of the full game experience. They think that a demo is some kind of work in progress and the final product is going to be much better. That's not how it works. A demo is not a beta. A demo is a playable slice of the finished game. Outriders was a mess as a demo, and it's a mess as a released game. We're going to talk about why this game is so bad. You said it would get better beyond the demo, and here I am 20 hours into the game and it has been a miserable experience. And it's not because I'm not a fan of looter shooters or cover shooters. I respect the Gears of War franchise even though it's not for me. I played Borderlands a bunch. I think Destiny 2 has some fun combat and movement even if, again, it's not for me. I'm not going to call a game bad just because it's not for me. I'm going to call it bad because it's really bad. First of all, any game that requires you to connect to its servers just to play the single player mode gets an F in my book, right off the bat. Outriders' launch was marred by server issues the following days that caused players not to be able to play it. Even though you can play solo, you were not allowed to play. So the developers of this game considered the fact that server problems can happen and that plenty of people live in parts of the world that have unstable or poor internet service, and they said screw them, you connect online or you don't play, period. I have no tolerance for this and it needs to be changed. Just before putting together this review, I decided to take a break from team play and just hop in and play some single player for a while. I came up on this battle here which took me several attempts because it was pretty challenging. I finally got the hang of it, I was using my powers appropriately, was using cover when I needed to. I took down the elite bad guy and picked up the key to the door. It took me about 30 minutes, which is fine. I don't mind repeating a battle until I get it. And I felt good, like finally I took out everyone and we're gonna go through this door. And then the server disconnected and I was booted from the game and I lost all my progress on the quest. This is unacceptable. The prologue to Outriders is abysmal, and I know the prologue isn't the whole game, but it is the first hour of the game, and it's unacceptable for the first hour to be this bad. It's filled with horrible modern gaming tropes of forced walking sections, constant cutscene interruptions, and brain-dead, laughably easy tutorials. For as much as I hear about Outriders not being a cover shooter, and everyone just parroting the corporate tagline of "the cover is for the enemies," Outriders gameplay still relies a lot on the cover system, and it introduces its gameplay through a cover tutorial. If you're not supposed to treat this as a cover shooter, why is the game presenting its combat tutorial through the cover system? If this isn't a cover shooter, then the game is doing a terrible job at showing what kind of game it's going to be. It would be like if you had a stealth game where the first 2 levels were running around out in the open shooting everyone with a shotgun. You don't want to mislead your players as they're trying to learn how your game works. People act like you're supposed to just be running around wildly out in the open in this game, and that only the enemies will be using cover. Yeah, good luck with that. This game spawns in so many units that constantly spray fire at you and snipe you the moment you expose yourself. You're gonna get shredded by gunfire if you don't use the cover system by World Tier 5 or 6. Most people are not going to be able to just ignore the cover system when they're taking this much damage, especially if they spend time in single player where 20 guys will shoot you the moment you're exposed. I do appreciate that not the entire game is focused on cover shooting. In many encounters, you can spend a lot of time in open space, rushing in to use your powers, and the cover system becomes important when you're facing a lot of enemies who are really deadly. That's good. I'll take that over a game that's 100% cover focused. So Outriders at least has that going for it. When the AI is so dumb that you're allowed to run about more freely, the cover system can be forgotten. But that turns the game into basically 2 different kinds of encounters. Ones where you're being sniped from every angle and you need to regularly take cover, and ones where you're standing out in the open shooting hordes of low health idiots or tanky bosses while constantly healing yourself. In between each of the awful gameplay sections are cutscenes filled with boring characters voiced with boring dialogue and boring performances. None more boring than your own character, who is either as lifeless as Henry from Silent Hill 4 or as obnoxious as V from Cyberpunk. Cutscenes are always interrupting the game. I've never seen a game with this many cutscenes. Cutscenes into loading screens, into more cutscenes, cutscenes of opening a door which go into loading screens. And I don't really know where else to mention this, so I'll just say it here. The music, it might as well not even be there. It's so bland and forgettable that I regularly forgot there was music playing. A lot of the time it just feels like a loop of dun, dun 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 dun, 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 dun 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 dun, dun. The camera problems I mentioned in my demo video are still persistent and lead to many moments of frustration. When you get anywhere close to a wall, the camera can't handle it. Your character completely disappears from your vision, and aiming becomes disorienting. If you end up in a tight space during combat, the camera becomes very problematic. The game only allows a max field of view of 90, which is ridiculous, especially in a game where enemies do their best to surround you and shoot from all around. You just don't have any peripheral vision here. And the worst part of it all is that when you aim your gun, the camera zooms in on your character so close that you lose all perspective of the battlefield. This isn't Dead Space. We don't need to be this close to our character when shooting. The combat can get so frantic in this game that cutting off this much of your vision just to aim your gun is horribly detrimental to the experience. In many cases, you lose your view of the ground, where enemies are regularly tossing explosives. You lose that important visual information you need to react to. You can see it on full display in this boss fight, where every time I aim at him, I can't see the ground anymore, in a fight that has constant damage and hazards on the ground. The animation issues in the demo are still here. Reloading your gun puts your character through awkward, unnaturally smooth motions. Taking cover and getting out of cover feels unresponsive sometimes. You can't jump at all. You have to vault over things or take cover behind something and then vault over. And these limitations can cause some real frustrating moments when you're just trying to get up over this tiny ledge and you can't. Oh my god. Outriders' main attraction is the ability system and how it plays into the loot system. There are some cool abilities and lots of things to consider when equipping a new weapon or piece of gear. It's not just about more armor or more life or firepower. Something might have lower stats, but it provides a perk to a special ability that you like to use, which elevates the gear system to something a bit more interesting. But while the abilities themselves are mostly pretty cool visually, they don't feel very good to use. It just feels like you hit the button and watch a basic, unremarkable animation. I tried to play with the Devastator class, but once I got to level 15, I had gotten so bored of his powers that I went back to my level 7 Pyromancer from the demo and worked my way back up. After unlocking more powers with him, I found a good mix of abilities that worked for my playstyle, but I don't actually find myself enjoying them or feeling powerful. The combat is the worst part of the whole thing. The guns feel wimpy, with barely any feedback, and really sad sound effects. There's more to how a gun is supposed to feel beyond just how quickly it kills an enemy. The only ones that have any sense of impact are a few of the shotguns. Enemies spawn in, just appearing out of thin air, in front of you, behind you, dropping your health to nothing in mere seconds. And if you die, you can resurrect yourself one time, and after that, one of your partners has to get you up. But you better cross your fingers and hope you don't get the awful resurrect bug that tells your partner effect resisted and makes it impossible to resurrect you. And now your last man is running around facing the fight alone, as his two partners sit on the ground unable to be resurrected. Just sitting there, staring at the screen, listening to the annoying heartbeat sound. The game doesn't even let you slowly crawl to a safer place in case you actually can be resurrected. The game does have its moments, where things come together and you go, wow, that was awesome. For me, it's with Pyromancer using the thermal bomb ability. I can burn someone at a distance, and when they die, they float in the air and explode, turning everyone around them into blood and gore. And it's cool, but aside from these moments, you're just shooting the same old boring rifles and submachine guns that you've seen and have been done better in 1,000 other games. All side quests are basically the same: run into a big area with a bunch of cover and mow down an army of dumbasses. A few heavy bullet sponges will come at you, then you get to the end. In 20 hours of gameplay, I haven't seen anything like take something to a place and connect it and defend this area for 2 minutes. It's all just the most basic missions ever. I even had a side quest where I talked to one guy, walked across the camp to talk to another guy, and walked back to the first guy, and I completed the side quest and got a new gun. For that. Boss battles are hilariously bad. Nothing more than run around emptying thousands of bullets into a brain-dead boss character that has no interesting behaviors at all. They don't jump to different levels of elevation, they don't charge up an attack that you need to quickly disable, no environmental aspects like shooting exploding parts of the level to damage the boss or knock out supports, or use other enemies against him somehow. They're all just the same straightforward thing of hold the crosshair on him and roll out of the way so you don't get hit. The worst part of the combat in Outriders is without question the AI, and this is where we have to get into my general distaste for cover shooters and looter shooters. These genres of games, while sometimes featuring a good title here and there, tend to be covers for bad AI. Artificial intelligence is hard to do. You need talented programmers. You can't just outsource it to another studio like you can with graphical assets. You need dedicated people who understand how to make intelligent enemy behaviors balanced around the player's capabilities and the level design. And I think a lot of studios don't want to put in that kind of work. So what do? They hide their enemies behind cover. They allow the player to passively recharge their health with hiding and recharging shields, or in the case of Outriders, life-leeching guns and abilities. They present difficulty in damage taken and enemy tankiness. It's why I stopped playing Borderlands 3 once I started getting to the higher tiers of the difficulty modifiers. The enemies weren't getting more interesting, they were just damaging me more and taking longer to kill, which is boring. I'd like to show this clip from our Lord and Savior Rich Evans, who explains this stuff perfectly.
Here's my question. Why do these games, these lazy games that just choose to be third-person shooters because they don't give a fuck, why is it always a third-person shooter? Is it because it's the easiest to make? You don't have to fucking worry about balance because you just take cover and heal?
It's the cover that makes it, because in first-person shooters, cover is really hard to come by, because then if you're in cover, you can't see the bad guys. And they have the auto heal.
But they don't have to worry about balancing your health to enemy damage.
Exactly. You could just run away and wait for a couple minutes for you to reheal.
They don't have to worry about having like quick, smooth movement gameplay action. They just pop, pop, pop. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Because then they don't need to like craft their levels for optimal gameplay experience. I just put some bad guys in there, he'll figure it out.
Put some cover in, and the bad guys show up. Yep.
People are making it through this area a little too fast. Put some more bad guys in there or whatever, or let them get through the area really fast. It doesn't matter.
How good are the mechanics? I don't care. He pops up and he shoots. It's a third-person shooter. Don't you know?
Your AI should get smarter as the game gets more difficult, but with Outriders, AI and smart do not belong in the same sentence. As I feared and predicted, the AI of Outriders across the board is moronic. Enemies sit behind cover spraying bullets the moment you're exposed, or they stand out in the open just begging to be shot. You unlock more world tiers to make the game more difficult, but they're still the same idiots. If your idea of fun is standing still while pumping endless bullets into big dumb bullet sponges that just stand there, this is the game for you. Playing in solo mode, the game absolutely becomes a cover shooter, because every enemy in the level will start shooting you as soon as you're exposed. When you're playing with friends, the game opens up into a more free-form experience. Most of the enemies are boring dudes and boring animals, or at least that's all I've seen in my 20 hours of gameplay, and they all act the same. I think I've seen 4 or 5 different kinds of animal creatures, and they all just run at me like idiots. The combat in Outriders can flip on a dime and suddenly go from long-range and sniper-based play to chaotic in-your-face fighting, and that sudden switch makes the 2-weapon limit a real agonizing inclusion. You only have space for a primary and secondary weapon, plus a pistol, and it doesn't make sense for this game's combat. I'm not saying you need to have full access to your arsenal, but at least one more slot. Because if you're using a sniper rifle and an assault rifle because it plays into your skills and style, when you suddenly find yourself surrounded by a bunch of big guys, you want to be able to switch to your submachine gun or shotgun. But you can't, because you have to open up the inventory to switch weapons, and even in single player, that doesn't pause the game. So you can't switch to a weapon you need because you'll get killed for doing it.
But Mayo, what about the loot? The loot, bro.
Ah yes, the loot. The all-important loot. That's what it's all about, right? Finding items and looking at their specs goes all the way back to the classic RPGs. You were excited to get a new crossbow or armor piece, and then you could sell the one you have and get something else. It was largely an RPG mechanic, but as more games in recent years have blurred the line between RPG and other genres, or simply adopted a bunch of RPG mechanics into their gameplay, loot hunting has become more prevalent. And much like how cover-based shooting is a way to disguise poor artificial intelligence, I think loot hunting in shooters is a way to disguise poor combat. Because the combat is no longer the main attraction. It's not about the thrill of the fight, or the fun strategies you execute, or making it out of a tough encounter without losing a bunch of health, or even a nice XP bonus for pulling off some sick combo attack. No, it's not about any of that anymore. It's about the shiny objects you get to pick up after the fight, the minutes you get to spend when it's all over, compulsively picking up items and obsessively studying their stats. It plays to the part of the brain where gambling addiction lies. That's why so many games have been able to successfully monetize their loot mechanics to make billions. For me, it goes back to World of Warcraft, when a bunch of my friends started playing it, and whenever they did a quest, it felt like they weren't doing it for the fun. They were doing it because they were looking for some kind of rare loot drop, and I just thought that was a lame way to look at combat in a video game. It's why I stopped playing Borderlands 3. I enjoyed leveling up my character and engaging in the gameplay and going through the worlds, but after I beat the campaign a couple times and my friends wanted to keep playing, it felt like we weren't actually having fun in these high-level grindy fights. We just wanted to find some better gun. And I don't like how this loot-based gameplay has started affecting other genres. It's one of the big problems I have with God of War 2018's combat. Even though the action feels really good and looks really good. The original's method of encouraging fun experimentation in combat by linking the XP rewards and resource management to your combat performance was thrown out in favor of a loot system. Since your health and magic now recharge, and there's no XP bonus for doing combos, the only thing left to get excited about is all the loot drops on the ground. I hate it. I understand that the loot in Outriders is good, if you're into that stuff. You can customize gear and upgrade it, there's crafting, lots of weapons have additional stats that have good synergy with your powers. I actually like to keep my low-level gloves just because they give me a double thermal bomb. That's cool, but it's not enough. It's not enough to have a bunch of good loot when the rest of your game is this bland and this dysfunctional on release. If you like this game, I'm happy for you. But if you've been on the fence about a purchase, I hope I've done something to convince you to stay away, because this kind of underdeveloped dreck should not be encouraged. Thank you for watching. The subscribe button is there below the video, right next to the dislike button. See you in the next video.